For the excellent information. And also, we're very honored to be a sponsor for this event, so thank you, Erwin. I think you're doing an excellent job. Thank you.
Testing.
Thank you. Thank you, doing an excellent job, and the enthusiasm you're bringing to the education sector, it's amazing. I mean, we've always had challenges from bringing technology into education, but I think we're at a point now, a cross point, where the reality is becoming a practical nature for our tools. So for today, what I wanted to do really is to give you an insight of where we, as a service provider for mobility, I think mobile has penetrated all our lives. We're at over 200% penetration in Hong Kong. We're one of the highest penetrated mobile cities in the world. And with that, the ubiquity of the devices that we use in mobile, how does this help us in the education sector? So I just wanted to talk about a few things. Really just looking, just a slight overview where we are, where we think we are with technology in education, some of the challenges that it's been posed to us. We want to look at how the mobile network really supports all this great applications and content that's coming out on board. I think we play a really, really strong part in able to deliver. Unfortunately, my presentation is not going to be as sexy as the Apple one. It never can be. It's always very hard following Apple when you're doing a presentation. I've done it a few times in my life, so. But really, the reality, the nuts and bolts behind delivering the content and making it predictable to both teachers and students is really where we come in. And then finally, just want to share a case study of how a mobile operator collaborated with an education institute to come up with something which was very practical and very usable and easily distributable for students. So I think the challenges we have as technology goes global is a different growth rates and the different maturities of the technology and the content coming together. This chart really just illustrates that in the different parts of the world, there is a more maturing. Now, when I say maturing, it doesn't mean they're ahead of us. It means that they're matured in a different way, especially in the US. The e-learning or e-education is very much done around a fixed environment rather than a mobile environment. Now, as we've seen in many over the last 10 years, Asia, what happened in the US, the traditional way would go clockwise, it would go through Europe and then Asia. But with mobility, we've jumped ahead of a step. So what's happened is that Asia is a much more advanced mobile environment than anywhere else in the world. And I believe that even though it looks like in this chart that Asia is a little bit behind in the e-learning, we will actually probably leap forward very quickly in the next couple of years because of the infrastructure that we have provided. Here's the second challenge, a very interesting chart, I think, is that many of us have children, and being first-time parents, we spend a huge amount of time and money trying to educate our kids, as you can see here. When they get to school, look at the curve, the content drops off completely. So it's a very, very underserved market, even though today there are many, many different ways of getting content. I think what Apple's doing is excellent. There's lots of other independent companies bringing content. But here's the challenge. From a very, very high content environment, from the years where you as the educator really has the touch point to the students, your resources are very limited. And we've got to really try and bring that to the fore. And I think things like this is going to help this happen quite a lot. So I don't need to tell you, you as educators, I mean, it's quite daunting trying to speak to teachers and educators in front of me because you do this on a daily basis. But your classroom has changed completely. From using the whiteboard, projectors are commonplace, which gives when you have a projector where you can change things on the fly, record things, bring in different materials or different multimedia materials, that means the interaction with the student is very different. I think without doubt, today we've seen that tablets is going to be a very mainstream tool in the education environment. Bringing notebooks in and netbooks in was very much coming from a commercial environment. I think the tablet today is very, very ubiquitous. It really adheres to the 3 rules of consumerism. There's no instruction manual. It works outside, first time outside of the box, and it works every time. And these are the things that are needed for the classroom as well. Teachers and students alike have very short attention spans, I think, in this. And then being able to, the tablet itself is just one tool, but think of it as a hub. Bringing other digital tools into using it as a collaboration becomes very important. And this really leads to the biggest changes, the collaboration and the interactivity tools. Before I came to CS, I worked in the startup community. I was very lucky in the private equity side to look at some very, very advanced and clever things that are happening around these types of tools. One of them in the interactivity, which probably helps, because as things become very personal to students learn very differently. But there was some, it's obviously not available now, and I don't think it will come into mainstream probably into the next 5 to 10 years. But there was a company that was looking at how a personalization of learning can help the student. Many students have different attention spans, and there's a way of measuring that from the flicker of the eye movements and the alpha waves. Now, taking that as a feedback, you as an educator can look at the pace of how you can teach the students within your classroom. Now that I think would be such a helpful tool when you are having large classrooms or multi-site classrooms to understand the attention level and the concentration of the students. So these are the sort of tools that lay the foundation of looking at this type of measurement as well. It's not, I think someone said it already, it's not one-way teaching anymore. It is collaboration. So within this classroom, this new classroom environment, how does this all work? Well, I think every school today has some sort of broadband connectivity. I mean, that's without doubt. Is that enough? It obviously isn't. Hence why Wi-Fi, as you said, Erwin, is becoming predominant in the school. But is that enough? Wi-Fi is very much around a hotspot environment. And what we're telling our students and educators, these things here, you can use them anywhere. It's not just the portability, but the mobility aspect of it. So Wi-Fi may even be very short-lived. And the reason I say that is that with the new wireless networks coming on, where the coverage is ubiquitous, I mean, think about it today. You make a call anywhere, anytime, and you pick up your emails and you look at Facebook. You know, it happens every time. You don't wait till you get to a hotspot and make that happen. Now, the difference with the mobile networks now is that the speeds and the performances are now coming up to Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi, we're talking about 10 megs, 15 megs in general. And when we were looking at the 3G network, the data network, we were looking at anywhere between 3 and 5 megs, which performance-wise was okay for most things, but probably not enough. With 4G coming on board, I just did a quick test here actually on 4G. I was getting anywhere between 25 to 32 megs per person. So think of the difference that can make. When you have 25, 30 megs types of bandwidth to each individual, the sort of things that you can do with that, coupled with the hardware that's coming through, it's very, very different. So here I think it's very, very important then, is where is the content being placed? Every student and every teacher will have their own content, but I think Apple's very correct in having the repository, which is really about cloud. Now, cloud technology is only as good as the network that provides it. You can have the best device on the end, you have the best storage in the central position and the most secure, but the wireless or the communication between it, if it's poor, the user experience is poor, people use it once and never use it again. And think of all of the great content and repository which is not used. So again, this is where I feel we as a service provider into this particular industry education, we have to be very, very much aligned on how we bring the content to you. And our networks must be supporting all of the different types of devices and the content that allows the students to really educate themselves in the best way. And interestingly, the demands are coming from the students as well, not just from educators. And we have the challenge in that respect. So just to give you a little bit of a technical slide here, this is the evolution of where mobile speeds are going. Today we're very familiar with the HSPA or 3G+, 14.4 megs. Most of your phones today, your handsets, support that. At CSL, we've really jumped ahead of the curve. 4 or 5 years ago, we decided that we wanted to be first in the market, and we were very correct in this decision because we looked at where not just devices were going, but how people were using them. And from our studies, we've seen the iPhone was a huge game changer. That just promoted content and data usage by a factor. The iPad or tablets in general is very interesting. We get 6 times more usage out of the tablet. When we look at the numbers, there's 6 more times data usage out of a tablet, purely because of the form factor than from a smartphone. And then we can only see that going up. Year on year, over the last 3 years, we've seen 10 times data usage go up. We bought Spectrum 5 years ago, and if you recall, there was a Spectrum auction last year, i.e. the government auctioning out a part of the airwaves, and a fifth of what we bought cost 20 times more, 3 times time down the road. So I think we made the right decision, and it supports this argument going forward. Today, where we are today, we launched our IoT network last year. That gives us 100 megs download, and for those who can't get 4G, what we've done, because we have the spectrum, is that we put 2 3G carriers together and we get 42 together. So the usability now is all there and thereabouts where a fixed line broadband is. You will not see a difference in this area. This isn't where it stops, it's going forward. At Mobile World Congress, our big technology seminar that happens yearly in Barcelona, LTE Advanced, 300 megs. The first pilots are coming out on that. We're already primed to put LTE Advanced on top of our network. It's a very, very small upgrade, and we have the bandwidth to do it. So what this does is really open up the connectivity to each and every individual now. Okay, I think content is accelerating at a huge rate. The connectivity and the devices, I think the programs that Erwin talked about are very, very interesting. Also, the device costs are coming down. We're looking at sub $100 tablets with the same performance as we're having today, and they're only getting cheaper. This leads me on to the next part I'd really like to talk about. Now, this is a term probably you're not familiar with, called mobile device management. Now, what we've seen in the commercial or corporate world is that once people start to choose their own devices, they don't only have one device. Many people, and I'm sure today, you probably have 2 devices in your pocket that connects to a mobile network. Some have 3 and some have 4. I have 4, which I got today, which I'm not proud to say, but what this means is that how do we control device? Now, as an educator, a teacher, when you give that power to the student to take content from wherever they want to do, collaborate and use, we also got to be careful, as an educator, to see how they use it and what they use it for. Device management gives you this from both the parent and the educator. So mobile device management is a solution we put together that helps us look at blacklisting or whitelisting apps. Not all apps are applicable to all age groups. I mean, and apart from the iTunes store, which is quite well governed, but you can still see some areas around that. There are many ways of getting apps. The other thing is the more basic security side and malware, which can come in from jailbroken devices. So as a school, and education is going branded, you don't want any of your school content producing any sort of security aspects or malware going through if it gets shared among others. And the other thing is that as content becomes more valuable, you want to be able to protect your own content. So if educators move from school to school, do you want them to bring the information or the content that you've produced at one school to another? And device management, again, can help you isolate that, wipe devices as they move. Okay, just want to wrap up then really with a case study here. This is a case study in China. A very prestigious school in Beijing decided to repackage their content. They wanted to be able to distribute that to other schools in different provinces. China Mobile helped them to do this. We as mobile operators and service providers, we're not content providers, we're not educators, we're certainly not the experts in these areas, but what we can do is provide you the infrastructure. It is our core business. We help you put things together, connect and distribute. And when we talk about distributed mobility, we're talking about 3 to 4 times distribution compared to a laptop or a notebook. So this is my one selling slide on one. I won't talk about this. Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you very much.